can't stop me.
I'm concerned with
I
you
don't give a
parking.
fuck what you're- and you're gonna get charged with assault. I'm calling.
Because that's an incredibly unfortunate video and noteworthy for a couple of different reasons. First of all is that is one of the few videos of this sort that I've seen where the person filming it has their phone taken from them by the Karen and then hucked, and we get to see it live spinning out of control as we normally watch the situation spinning out of control. The second reason is that we focus a lot on this sort of antisocial behavior that's become so common in the US recently. Well, that's in Canada. So just to be clear, there are bad people all over. Francesca, thoughts?
I mean, what is it about the Canadians? What is inherent in their violent culture, their sort of, parasocial relationships divided by the internet? I'm just glad it's on that side of the border, And
we can't take it here.
No, it's awful, obviously. And the guy's trying to de-escalate. He's trying to be so calm to her. She's got her knee in the door. I'm like waiting for him to shove her, and he does not. Yeah. And then you have someone, she's getting upset because of a parking spot. Lady, breathe, calm down, do some mindful meditation. It's okay, get mad at other things. Go watch Squid Game, get mad at that. Get your rocks off somewhere else. But like, again, the entitlement and like, this doesn't feel like a moment of mental illness, but it is such a perfect moment of entitlement. No, I need to speak to you because you parked wrong. You took my space. This is only 15-minute. Stop being a snitch. Calm down.
Yeah.
Like just.
Yeah, you're totally right. This is a true Karen sort of thing. The other instances, it's propaganda, it's all that. This is just, I'm gonna get involved in a worker's life. I'm gonna make their life harder. They inconvenienced me, I believe, with the parking spot thing. I'm gonna show how little it actually inconvenienced me by taking way more time to now do this. And you're so right. The most Canadian thing about the video is the guy was just, you can't just stop someone from closing their door. And he was like, I guess this is my life now. He doesn't do anything about it. He was so calm, so patient. And then she chucked his phone. Those are expensive devices. You can't do that. Okay, that's crazy.
Maybe she's American.
Maybe, that would explain a lot. I doubt he was, but maybe. Anyway, just everyone leave each other alone. I have been advocating, I'm gonna run for president on a one-part platform. Don't talk to other people when you go outside under any circumstances. Just leave each other alone. And don't talk online or inside either.
Most people are nice. I feel like we need a bunch of other videos of people just being nice. Like that's what I need at the end of the day, is a bunch of people just like opening the door for one another and like helping people cross the road and stuff. Why don't we film that stuff?
We're gonna work on that. That's why the No Bones video went so viral. Anyway, unfortunately, that's all the time we have. But Francesca, as always, thank you for joining me, host of the Bitchuation Room, as well as the Twitchuation Room, and going to be joining me for our top 10 favorite things about Squid Game, which we're going to be releasing to our tier 2 and tier 3 members on YouTube in just a little bit. We're going to be recording that in a few. Until next time, stay safe out there, stay sane out there. We'll see you soon.
Welcome. It's indisputable. Good to be with you. We have a lot on the agenda today. Breaking down news of the day. My contributor will be Yasmin Khan, host of Global Thread podcast and a remarkable human being. Also, my debate segment, The Bullpen. We have Amber Athey, Washington editor at Spectator and co-host of O'Connor and Company on WMAL. We will chop it up about workplace vaccinations, school vaccines, and mask. Top news story of the day. White students at a Georgia school wave the Confederate flag. Black students get offended, and rightfully so, and start planning a protest to this ridiculous expression. White students have no penalty, but the plan that black students were making created penalty where they received suspension. Isn't that something? Let me take you to Rome, Georgia. After white students displayed the Confederate flag, let me remind you of the Confederate flag, here it is. After they displayed basically this, which is a symbol for bigotry, racism, and hatred in the United States of America and beyond, black students were suspended from the high school, proving that this flag, bring it up again. Let's see the flag again. Proving that that flag is still alive and well in the hearts of many. Now I'm going to give you a lot of background to this story because it's quite insane. This is happening right here, right now. Black students were suspended from the high school for planning a protest after another group of students came to school waving a Confederate flag. You heard me right. They did not actually protest. They were planning to protest. Peaceful demonstration. The mere thinking and planning caused their suspension. Last week, a group of students at Coosa High School in Rome, Georgia, were filmed waving the Confederate flag and hurling racial slurs. Well, of course, that fits hand in glove, right? You can't, I think there's actually a rule. If you're waving the Confederate flag, you have to spout racial slurs. They were simply following the pattern of their parents. Let's be very clear about this, okay? Newsweek reported that the 4 students filmed were carrying the Confederate flag in favor of Farm Day on School Spirit Day, which led up to homecoming. They did not face any repercussions, nothing. In response, many students said the school did not do much to reprimand the students carrying the flag, and the protest was planned to bring awareness to the problem. Good for them. That's according to CBS 46 Atlanta. Local reporting, good for them. The students are standing up saying because the administration did not do what they should have done in this matter, we are going to stage a peaceful protest. However, the school administration suspended several students who were planning the protest, including white students. Student protesters told CBS 46 that only black students were suspended. Isn't that quite interesting? Isn't that something? It gets deeper. Let me show you a picture of the principal. His name is Mr. Judson Cox, okay? He's the principal. He says, excellent is the gradual result of always striving to do better. I got this off of the Floyd County Schools website, but take a good look at the guy who's in charge of the institution, okay? The administration is aware, according to the administration is aware of tomorrow's planned protest. The administrator said over the intercom before the planned demonstration. Police will be present here at the school. And if students insist on encouraging this kind of activity, they will be disciplined for encouraging unrest. Let's put his picture up again, okay? Because he's the guy in charge of this. Now let me remind you, when you call the police to a situation, you're calling a gun. Never forget that. When you call the police, you're calling a gun. So he's saying that because of this planned protest, peaceful demonstration about their failure of leadership, that in order for his administration, under his leadership, in order for them to exhibit their authority, they must in fact call a gun on these primarily black students who were offended by the inaction of the administration. A gun is going to come here, multiple guns. We're going to have police here. Does it remind you of anything? It gets deeper. 2 white students participating in the Friday protest were not suspended, even though they claim to be as disruptive as the black students. That's according to CBS. In Floyd County, which includes this high school, 8% of black students were suspended, the highest percentage of any race based on the reporting of CBS. According to county data that we've been able to retrieve, Floyd County is made up of 70% white, 14% black, and about 8% Hispanic. We will let you know if there's an update to this story. But once again, we see an isolated incident of racial insensitivity and racism being displayed by students. These students learned this behavior from their parents, from their own community, make no mistake about it. And then that personal experience that should have been an isolated incident connects to the systemic structure of racism and bias in the United States through our educational system. The administrators suspended the black kids who dared to object to this, and then threatened to have the police called on them if they engaged in a peaceful protest at the school. Wow. Ms. Khan, you see this story, what are your thoughts?
There is a lot going on here. There's a lot of levels to it. I like that you did call attention to the fact that these students were simply planning a protest. They didn't actually execute the protest yet, and they were still punished for it by suspension, which is a huge deal. We talk about systemic issues in this country. We talk about systemic racism. We talk about the school to prison pipeline and how it starts. More importantly, though, right now we're seeing some kind of justice attempting to be played out against the January 6th insurrectionists. And if you look at the bigger picture, you see people who are entitled to what they think is their right to protest or insurrect or whatever the case is. And the level of entitlement that they don't think that they're going to be penalized for it is staggering. And the fact that it's been almost a year since that insurrection and they still haven't been punished for it, at least not on the scale that many of us would hope for. Right. It's setting a precedent at several different levels of society. Once something like that is out in the world, once something like that happens in our country and the perpetrators get away with it, you're gonna start to see things like this continue to happen in the country. And what we're seeing in Georgia right now seems like a really strange echo of what we saw on January 6th and the proceedings afterwards.
Very well said. And I know people, after we post this on social media and beyond, they will hit me up saying the Confederate flag is about history. No, it's not just about history. It's about a particular brand of history. It's about the history of bigotry, racism, and slavery. It is not about states' rights. It is about the right of the state to continue in the industry of slavery. Let's be very clear about what it is. And overall, the Confederate issue was an issue committing treason against the United States of America. I don't know where else we would tolerate a treasonous uprising and celebrate it as we do, except when racism like this is attached. Isn't that something? We got another story. Okay. This is why the FBI is involved in monitoring radicals who are threatening to burn down school buildings. Let me first take you to the video. Here it is.
If they're going to push this on the kids without any type of balance on our end that we're comfortable with, I can guarantee you one thing: town halls and schools will be burned to the ground. In 1776, nobody went to court. Nobody went to court. Anyone grabbed the gun and they shot at each other. And again, I do not condone violence. I hope we don't get there. But just understand that there are plenty of people that are ready to go there.
Okay, they need to lock his ass up now. You heard him right. He said that they are going to burn down town halls and schools. You know, schools have children in them, and they complain about the DOJ, the federal government, saying, let's coordinate to make sure these things do not happen. Well, this person said it openly. He talked about 1776 and people using guns, not going to court. It's amazing to me that the same crew that used to be the law and order crew, the constitutional crew, just comply crew, are now the same crew who are saying things like this. And you don't expect there to be pushback from common sense Americans who do not want to see the likes of you take over their government to run their democracy? I don't want people like you in charge. Let me give you a little background to the story. This was on Staten Island. These are anti-vaxxers, okay, obviously. Hundreds of people gathered to protest vaccine mandates. This was a visit by the New York governor who spoke on stage across the street, okay? The governor thanked first responders, called for more vaccinations, and commented on the protest just across the street. Hundreds of protesters chanted, "Hold the line, USA." Ms. Khan, thoughts?
First of all, I feel really, really terrible for the children. Every time adults try to act crazy, the children are the ones who suffer. There are already all kinds of issues with them going to school with gun violence and things like that. Now they got to worry about their schools being burned down, I guess. On top of that, it's the bigger issue of, I mean, this guy is taking something straight out of the Trump playbook, out of the Tucker Carlson playbook. He's saying, this might happen. People are gonna take their guns out like it's 1776. People might start burning down buildings. I'm not saying they should, but they might. And the way that information travels these days on the news and on social media and just in smaller circles, the minute something's out there, it's out there and it spreads like wildfire. No matter how ridiculous the idea is, the minute that it's put in somebody's head, it's there. And somebody may or may not take up the call to arms. Also, why I don't understand why we're still comparing our lives in 2021 to anything that was happening in 1776. I wish we could just stop doing that. It wasn't the best way to live, and we've progressed a long time from then. And we're not the same people. We're not the same country we were in 1776.
Very well said. And one of the root definitions of civilization is to trade in brute instinct for civil discourse and civil engagement. So let's go to something else. New York City, 2,000 firefighters have all of a sudden said, "Oh, I'm sick and cannot come to work." Well, this is in protest, obviously, to the vaccine mandates in New York City. More than 2,000 employees have now taken sick leave over the past week. 6 firefighters have been suspended for threatening a state senator. Yes, they threatened a state senator in uniform, and they drove a company vehicle to do so. Let me give you the background. Some of the first responders have resisted the vaccine mandates, so they would rather lose their jobs and they would rather put other people at risk than simply take the mandated vaccine. And courts have ruled, yes, they have the ability, these companies, these government agencies have the right, the ability to enforce it. Frank Dyer. Frank is the deputy commissioner of the New York City Fire Department. Said by email that the number of firefighters on medical leave was very unusual. You don't say. The department employs roughly 11,000 firefighters. A senior city official briefed on the vaccination data says that over half of the firefighters who have called out sick have never received a single dose of the vaccine. There's a fire commissioner. His name is Daniel A. Nigro. Suggested in the statement Sunday, the firefighters who participated in the apparent sickout were neglecting their oaths, which commit them to faithfully discharge the duties of their jobs. Those who do not meet the vaccination requirement have been threatened with unpaid leave starting Monday. Now remember, this is the same rule that applies to every single city worker. All city workers have to abide by this rule. Listen, you can work another job, okay? You can work another job. You don't have to work in this industry. You can go somewhere else. Let me show you a picture of the senator that they threatened. All right. Now remember, Frank Dyer, who's the deputy commissioner, said 2,000. called out, right? You got 11,000 in total. This is the guy that 6 of those firefighters threatened. NBC New York News 4 reported the group of firefighters arrived at State Senator Zellner Myrie's Brooklyn office on Friday. Okay, they pulled up on him. They pulled up to his office, asking his staff to disclose his home address and warning them of blood on their hands to come after the mandatory unpaid leave periods begins on Monday. Here's what the senator said. He said, and I quote, "I am outraged. One, that on-duty officers who were supposed to be focused on keeping us safe and responding to emergencies would attempt to use their uniforms and their fire truck to intimidate my staff. And secondly, it is disturbing that they would approach a state elected official for a city mandate and would, I think, offer veiled threats about my own safety by asking where I live personally." Whoa, talk about privilege here. I mean, damn. They were in uniform and they took the company vehicle. The city vehicle, the one that you all in the city pay for, the taxpayer funded one, to do something like this. I don't know if they understand this, Ms. Khan, but he's not in charge of the city. This guy was selected. He's not even the guy in charge of this. What are your thoughts here?
Well, they always need a focal point for their hatred and for their whatever cause that they've decided to pick up. They need someone to pinpoint it on. They need a direct person, because otherwise they lose momentum for their movement, right? One thing that I find very frustrating, and one thing that I have very little patience for in general, is people who make an issue bigger than it actually is, or create problems where there aren't really any. Something as simple as getting a vaccine, especially, I mean, we've been in this since March of 2020. It's been almost 2 years. People are tired. Just get the vaccine and be done with it, especially if you call yourself a public servant. Public servant being the operative word there. Any cop that I've met personally, anyone that I know personally, including firefighters, whenever you ask them, why did you get into this line of work? They say, because I wanted to help my community and they wanted to give back. And that's just from my own personal dealings with cops and firefighters. That's what they always tell me, and I believe them. This is not the way to serve the public good. This is not helping anything. This is bullying your state senator. It's bullying the people in your community. It's holding people hostage just because you don't want to do something that everybody else is already doing.
Right, or don't get the vaccine and just get another job. Keep it moving. Hell, nobody cares. That's how this should work. All right, we got more on the other side. Indisputable.
I'm old enough that I remember when Captain Crunch put the berries in it.
Yay, crunch berries!
And I was like, ooh, the fake berries.
Remember?
We're gonna try that.
We did a story back in the day about how a woman sued, I don't know, General Mills.
She'd been eating it for 4 years,
Right.
believing that it was actual berries. Yeah. She's like, these aren't real berries at all.
Yeah.
I'm like, I got news for you. Captain Crunch isn't really a captain or a person. Joining me now, legendary whistleblower and American hero, Edward Snowden. First question is, hey, where are you?
I'm in my apartment in Moscow.
All of a sudden, in the studio, Jim Gaffigan, everybody.
Mental illness is, completely undiagnosed in our society.
It's not about a particular administration. It's about a broken system of power, and through that, really, the instrumentalization of a system of not justice, but injustice.
People understand whether they claim to deny climate change or not. Our collective house is in crisis. We're also dealing with the legacy of 40 years of economic policies that have made people's lives more precarious.
Sometimes you gotta force people into their humanity. Sometimes you have to shake people into empathy.
Senator Elizabeth Warren joins us in the studio.
Healthcare is a basic human right, and we are fighting for basic human rights.
In order to actually achieve that vision of everyone having access to the same resources and getting to determine the outcome of their life, we have a lot of work to do, and it needs to start right now.
Here's something you may not know. When you deposit your money in a big bank, it doesn't just sit, safe and secure, in a vault. Instead, your money could end up building oil pipelines, mining for coal, or drilling in the Arctic. So if you're concerned about the planet, give your money something good to do. Make the move to green with Aspiration's fossil fuel free account and join the thousands each week who are switching to save their dollars and save the planet at the same time.
Welcome to the Damage Report. I'm John Idarola. This is gonna be a big one.
What Donald Trump has done as president has cut taxes for the wealthy and made life better for rich people. But he's made life worse for poor people.
We're making America great again by throwing more money at the military to destroy other countries because that makes us great instead of investing it in ourselves.
That it's Donald Trump and it's Stephen Miller. The choosing is based on wanting to create cruel and inhumane conditions to scare other people away from ever coming to the United States.
The opportunity to make money off of tragedy is the American way.
There's only one place to put garbage people: in the trash.
We've never had so much access to so much information with so little idea of what the hell is going on.
What does enforcing our borders have to do with traumatizing children? Absolutely nothing.
I think a sane person could say the current situation we have right now is radical. But what we're doing is literally making the world more like hell. That's a warning sign.
ShopTYT.com now has books. One of them is Ryan Grimm's book, We've Got People. That's a saying that AOC said, they've got money, we've got people. It's the best tracing of the AOC victory I've seen anywhere. It's the most accurate, and it's got great details. The book actually goes all the way back to Jesse Jackson and how he's the original Bernie Sanders. If you want to know how we're going to win going forward, those lessons are super important, and they're in Ryan's book. So check it out right now at ShopTYT.com.
We found the perfect person to lead the army, Allison Hartson.
The establishment media works hand in glove with our corporate legislators, and our corporate legislators work hand in glove with the corporation. And we're going to make it so that it's a decentralized force throughout the country so that we can quickly identify stories, quickly identify troll farms, and go in and neutralize the enemy, and then start building responsible media throughout the country and on every platform available.
All right, welcome back. We got a lot of show left. Let me remind people of a few things, okay? Membership. If you're not a member of TYT, I need you to change that immediately, okay? Make it happen. Sign up the whole family. Be the change. From being the first to cover important stories to taking positive action on the ground, TYT has been at the forefront of change since our inception. You can be part of our change machine by becoming a member at tyt.com/change. If you're already a member, you're already part of the machine, the change machine, okay? All right, big announcement. Remember, TYT is looking for new talent, new video content creators for Rebel HQ. We're looking for people to write, produce, host, edit short form editorial videos on breaking news and political stories with a progressive point of view. If you're interested, apply at tyt.com/careers. tyt.com/careers. And don't forget the conversation today, 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time, 2:30 p.m. Pacific Time. tyt.com/live right before the Young Turks. Make sure to subscribe. Watch all of the amazing interviews at youtube.com/TYT conversation. Let me go to these comments. Just Be Anti-Racist says, my son Kendrick wore his indisputable I wish a Karen would tee for Halloween yesterday. He said, best not be any Karens knocking on our door, Mom. I was ready to record, but sadly, no Karens. Damn. But I'm very proud of Kendrick, all right? Thank you and keep it up. Eric the Red, about the Confederate flag. That's quite a lesson for the kids. Don't protest and bow your heads to bigotry. Yep. They didn't care about the offense. They did not release a statement saying we are so sorry about how this offended our student body. None of that. Mickey C, the Silverhaired Dragon. I guess in the right-wing world, children don't have the constitutional right to free speech and peaceful protest. Suspending the black students without suspending the white ones sends the message loud and clear. Yep, that was the aim. Staten Island anti-vaxxers. Mickey C also says, the man asking Charlie Kirk, and this was a few days ago, the man asking Charlie Kirk, when can we use our guns? When can we kill them? I just read a survey where over 20% of Republican respondents stated that violence is the only way to save the country. Lynn, I don't want a non-vax firefighter giving someone mouth to mouth. That's right. They are first responders and trained in that. Back to the Confederate flag. Aaron Aquinos, see, this is a real violation of freedom of speech. It is. Forbesilla, why do you need police for a peaceful protest? That's the way to keep the black children under control. Okay, that's all. That's what they wanted to do. Okay, to send out that contrary message. EcoStar. So flying the Confederate flag doesn't encourage unrest? Exactly. Maddie J88. We changed our flag in Mississippi. The Confederate part was taken away and completely changed. Over 80% was in favor of finally changing it. I remember that, and good for you all. Brock Steele says, and this is why it's not safe to live in the United States without owning a gun. This is about the anti-vax rally. Hate to say it, but look at these vicious murderers publicly saying they want to kill you. And they are. I mean, these people must be on an FBI watch list. They need to be on the no-fly list for sure, okay? All right, Twitch, about the Confederate flag. Jax Drax, white privilege allows for them to be publicly racist, whereas people of color protesting injustice are treated as violent criminals. Well, even planning a peaceful protest, you're treated as a violent criminal. All right, Sauce 240. This is why they think last year's protests, all of the cities were burning down, is projection of what they want to do, as always. Isn't that ironic? Right? It's real ironic that they said, Black Lives Matter, they destroy cities. They are violent, they're criminals. No, less than 1% of any protest connected to a Black Lives Matter rally resulted in any level of destruction or violence. Less than 1%. You would never heard a Black Lives Matter protest sound like these anti-vaxxers. Never, not one. That should tell you something. All right, we got more. Ladies and gentlemen, I wish a Karen would.
You want to call the police on them for having a barbecue on a Sunday?
I feel free. Back off. I'm going to tell there's an African-American man threatening my life.
And you don't have to be so silly.
Me?
You're too old for this. Use your brain.
We're 13.
We're
13? How are we old? Too old. How's that too old?
You're too old. I taught kindergarten and first grade before I got my
Wait, I thought you were a
master's in
police officer.
psychology.
Yeah, now you're lying again. Wait, I thought you were a police officer. Don't get hostile. Don't touch us. Don't do anything.
Touch you.
I'm already
not
injured.
touching you. Out.
Dude, no, like you actually cannot do this. I do know who owns the plantations and does know who owns this neighborhood. I'll have a conversation with about you later.
It has nothing to do with this neighborhood. Go now.
Ma'am, you do understand like there's a more polite way. You guys, they must do this and just say. Yeah, you started screaming, and I was.
I saw one guy fall and could hurt.
Yeah. I wasn't hurt at all. I'm wearing a padded suit that's made for motorcycles.
Yeah. Okay, but this is
I can't get hurt.
This is not a skating park.
Yeah, but you could ask politely though. Like we're gonna leave, but like
Linda,
you don't have to yell at us.
Come on, Linda.
Like we're not even punks. We're glad to leave.
You could be doing something worse. You could be egging your house.
Yeah, like seriously.
You just said you're gonna egg my house.
We said it could be worse.
Doing worse stuff.
We could be. It's Halloween. We could be doing a lot worse.
Yeah.
Damn, the children can't have fun on Halloween, Karen. Come on, Karen. Even the anti-Karen was like, come on, Linda, come on now. Let's just, it's Halloween. I did find it interesting because remember, we're keeping a log here of Karenicity log, right? Here's what we found out. Here's a new element we need to put down in the book. The kid said, hey, we could be doing something bad, like egging a house. Karen says, you just said you would egg my home. No, that's not what we said. So here's what we've learned. Here's a new thing. Don't mention what you won't do or what could happen if you were a bad person, because Karen will say that is the threat against her. Now, this is a little bit of levity here. These kids were skateboarding, and this particular individual decided to be very rude to them. I do find it quite interesting that they, the children, sounded more like adults than she did. Funniest line, now you're lying again. That was the fun, when they said, see, now you're lying again. Come on now, you said you were the police earlier. Come on now. All right, Ms. Khan, what are your thoughts here?
This particular Karen seems like she just hates Halloween and she was ready to fight some people. She's ready to fight some kids. She says, you know what, I don't like any of this. I don't want to be a part of any of it. And the thing with skateboarding in particular is always funny to me. I grew up in the 90s. I'm a 90s kid. There was always kids rollerblading, skateboarding, scooting, bicycling, whatever the case was. They're not menaces. They're just getting around on wheels. That's it, you know? At worst, they're doing some tricks on their skateboards. They're not bothering anybody. And I do want to commend the kids in the video. They said, you know, you didn't have to come at us like that with all that negative energy. You could have just asked us to leave if we were making you uncomfortable. We would have left. I don't know why there's like such a default to just antagonize people and be mean and be just angry all the time, when really, if you just talk to people like they're people, most people are not going to be, I can't say the word I wanted to use, but they're not going to be terrible about it. You know, people are going to say, okay, fine, I'll move, no problem.
Yeah, and they were quite reasonable. They were trying to have fun. I'm a big live and let live guy. I want children to have as much fun as they can, because once they become grown like us, it's a different situation, right? So big ups to them for showing so much respect and being very courteous in their rebuttal to this particular Karen. Okay, anti-vaxxers in New Hampshire, they get trolled. All this was priceless. I think this is now the new model. Trump supporting anti-vaxxers decided to protest outside of a hospital. I have no issue with that. This is a land where you can protest. I also have no issue with this person who showed up. Here it is.
And it's murder. Do your research. I have all the ingredients of every one of the bioweapons. And we have doctors and nurses coming forward. Crimes against humanity and treason.
I love your costumes. I love your costume. You guys nailed the crazy Trumpster costume.
Out of the hospital, and right after her dad got his shots, all his organs started failing.
Oh my God, that is crazy that happened at a hospital, and that there are other things that happen. It's so weird that other diseases happen in COVID. It's so weird. Can you guys believe? Oh my God. It's so nobody's caught the flu. Whoa, nobody. That's so weird. You guys are brilliant.
Meditated murder.
Can you get your dog's nose out of my?
Hey, her speech, her freedom of speech is just as protected as theirs. Okay? I have no problem with how she utilized her freedom of speech to make them look like the idiots they are. Now, here's the thing, here's background. This poor woman, TikTok user Kathleen Cavallaro was trying to visit her husband who was in the hospital, okay? So she is there for a legitimate reason. And she was harassed about wearing her mask by the guys you just saw, okay? This was outside of Catholic Medical Center in Manchester. Whatever the intention may have been behind the protesters who are also Trump supporters, let's be very clear about what the CDC says. This low flu activity, because there is a lower flu activity season, this low flu activity was likely due to the widespread implementation of COVID-19 preventative measures like masks, physical distancing, and staying home. You know what else is low? The common cold, all right? Why? Because people engaged in these very safe practices. Makes perfect sense, but according to these Trump supporters, it's because it's weird. According to a report from WAPO, doctors are bracing for a potential twindemic, okay? So I want to make sure you know about this. Survey data released on October 7th, okay? Survey data released October 7th found slightly more than half of American adults plan to be vaccinated against influenza. That's not much of a change from pre-pandemic surveys conducted by the National Foundation for Infectious Diseases. But health authorities are alarmed because some evidence point to a potentially more severe flu season. Experts say Americans have built up less natural immunity against influenza because so few were infected in 2020. Once again, following the science on all of this. What is following the science? Science means observe or observation of the field of study. Yasmin, what are your thoughts?
What was one of the things that the anti-vaxxers said to the girl? She says something like, I don't like your costume because you're breathing in all these toxins. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. Yeah, like you're breathing the same air, and at least she has some kind of filtration system in front of her face. So that doesn't make any sense. But again, to reiterate my earlier point, people are just tired of anti-vaxxers and anti-maskers. The data is there. Whatever you're arguing, the data has never supported it. And everyday Americans are still being affected by this. My best friend had a baby over the weekend, shout out to her. But we couldn't go to the hospital, we couldn't go see her, her mother couldn't go, all these things that are affecting everyday people's lives, people who are doing what they're supposed to be doing, who are doing their best to make the situation better, not just for ourselves, but for the people who can't get vaccinated for various reasons and the people who can't stay home for various reasons. We're trying to get back to a functioning society. And again, these people are just holding back whatever progress we're making and just being obstructionist. And I'm tired of it. And I think a lot of other people are.
Think about the irony of this. Before it was politicized, I'm talking about common sense. Common sense has now become politicized. If one of those individuals went to a hospital and they had surgery and somebody did not have on a mask, they would say, why don't you have on your mask? Right? Because that's protocol. You go to a hospital, you see professionals in the healthcare arena, they need to have on masks. They need to treat you with gloves. Common sense protocol, somebody's coughing at your home, you say, hey, keep that over there, because I don't want it to come over here. Damn, before COVID and the politicization of this issue, those same people had common sense about infectious diseases, about colds, about viruses. And all of a sudden, after Trump and his cronies put mud in the water, is totally different. They have completely abandoned all common sense. And that is the definition of indoctrination. Indoctrination is when you can no longer challenge what you believe, or what you believe cannot be challenged with truth. You simply believe what you believe, regardless of the evidence, information, and facts in front of you. We got more on the other side. It's indisputable. Stick and stay.
Every day, the Young Turks delivers 2 hours of solid, fact-based, timely news and progressive commentary on all the day's most important stories. We keep our viewers informed while also providing perspective and insight on the news we cover, so you understand not only what's happening, but also what's happening behind the scenes, the stories behind the stories.
Gee, I wonder why we didn't get $15 minimum wage. Because they're all raising money from the guys who don't want to increase the minimum wage.
And we play musical chairs and put these children in one awful detention facility to the next. That's what's happening at the border.
The things that got him banned, he's still spreading. So presumably, I think it's reasonable to say that if you allow him back on the website, he's going to do it again.
Any legal voter that we deem not willing to vote for my side shouldn't vote because it'll replace me that's supposed to vote for my side. That's not how voting works. That's not how democracy works.
start. And while many people following today's political news can get discouraged about the direction of the nation and the world, that's not us. At TYT, we're genuinely optimistic about the future, and with good reason. Today, wide majorities of Americans agree with our progressive stances on issues ranging from healthcare and education to climate, immigration, and wages. The rising generation of young people are also overwhelmingly progressive in their political beliefs and policy objectives, and they're increasingly flexing their muscle as voters and activists to demand change from our elected officials. The traditional mainstream media is mostly AWOL. They, along with the government and many other cherished institutions, have been captured by corporate interests. Audiences sense that they're not getting the whole story or even the truth from once trusted outlets, whether broadcasting cable TV news networks or national newspapers and magazines.
The Republicans say we will serve our corporate masters at all costs, including killing democracy, yet here we are. Where else do you hear that? You hear that on NBC, on ABC, on CBS? You hear it nowhere.
They don't want to talk about money in politics because it's really hard to pass judgment when your media organization is funded by fossil fuel companies.
The antidote is the Young Turks. Unlike mainstream corporate outlets, we're not beholden to corporate advertisers, the defense contractors, the Wall Street, or the big pharma. And we don't carry water for the Republican or Democratic parties. So watch us Monday through Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific, and join the thousands of progressives around the globe who tune in every day for TYT's unmatched, award-winning content and see what it's like to experience a news organization that only answers to you.
I'll continue to sit. I'm going to continue to stand with the people that are being oppressed.
The president labeled him a son of a bitch.
I don't think it's good to be a distraction to your team.
To stand proudly for the national anthem.
You know, some of these people need to move to another country.
Well, you shouldn't be playing. You shouldn't be there. Maybe you shouldn't be in the country.
The president is put in place to amplify the racists in this country.
Black men and boys are killed at an exponentially higher rate than white men and boys, as outlined by PBS. Black people are most likely to be killed by police, found mappingpoliceviolence.org. Personally, my biggest gripe is not saying how sports and politics have been attached at the hip. From the jockey syndrome, to the Negro Leagues, to Tommy Smith and John Carlos, Muhammad Ali, to modern day and everything in between. This is not an escape. It is a reflection of reality and a reflection of the times.
Everything that we've accomplished over the years is because of our members who've allowed us to remain independent of corporate interests and reach 20 million followers. Now is the time to bring as many people into the progressive movement as possible. We're inviting you to be the change and help bring a community-powered progressive change machine to life. Details are at tyt.com/change. If you're a member, thank you. We need you to remain so. If you're one of the thousands of viewers out there who's not a member yet, the time has come for you to join now. We need you more than ever. tyt.com/change.
Yep, welcome back. We got a lot of show left. Okay, let me read some of these comments. TYT member about the Karen says, potion seller says, what's her address? I'm gonna egg her house. Just a joke, but funny. Lynn, someone raised those skaters right, yep. Anti-vaxxers troll. Zoolander establishment DM says, do these guys remember any of these things? 1, Operation Warp Speed. 2, Trump had COVID. 3, he got vaccinated. 4, he told his supporters to get vaccinated. Exactly, right? When Trump told a crowd, I think it was Alabama, make sure they're vaccinated, they started booing him, and then he changed, or not, he changed immediately, okay? YouTube super chat, Karen. I think this is railing in. Someone get their grandma. Right. That's a fight for grandma right there. I'm with you. Osiris XTV. Can't I just get some candy, Karen? Yeah. Railing in says, you're not listening, Linda. Neo Death 07. Linda, listen. Linda, listen. Esther, I think it's Broshin. I am glad that the kids are calling her out. The kids are just having fun skateboarding. Yep, and they're very respectful. Smoky mirrors. When the kids sound more like an adult than the Karen sigh. Yeah. Pawns Gambit. I don't care about Halloween or any holiday, but I'm able to find joy in watching others having fun. Those damn Karens are like joy vampires. Yeah. Anti-vaxxers trolled Rosie. Trump took the vaccine, so yeah. Anisha Cameron. I usually get a cold every single winter, but guess what? I wore my mask, socially distanced, and worked from home for 19 months and never got that usual cold. Well, according to the Trump protesters, that's weird. That's very weird. All right. Let me bring your attention to a real estate agent who has now lost his job because he decided to harass children who were wearing masks. I kid you not. Let me take it to New York. Here it is.
Need to be breathing fresh oxygen. This is diabolical. This is a psychological operation. Yeah. Children should be breathing fresh oxygen. Why are we suppressing oxygen levels to our children? Why? Why are we doing it? Dear parents, please take off these masks from your children. Please take them off. Take them off. They're not helping. They're degrading their health. They're degrading their health. Children need it for empathy. Children need empathy. We only get that via facial recognition. It's a street, and I can walk down the street. I can walk down the street. Keep on watching your CNN and abuse your children.
Stop abusing your children.
Your parents are abusing you. That's what's going on. Because they can't let go of CNN. They can't let go.
Why is he allowed that close to anybody's child? Number one, that would not happen on my watch. So he's walking down, he's protesting, he's talking to children, saying that they are being physically abused. We have real abuse victims in the world, sir. They are being protected. The mask is because we're in the middle of a pandemic. So let me bring your attention to who this guy is. His name is Curtis Goldstein. He's the guy in the video. He worked at Our New York, which is a local brokerage firm. That means this person is professionally licensed, trained, took a whole damn examination, studied for this exam, is experienced as a professional in this arena. And he decided to throw it all away in order to go out and harass children. That's what he decided to do with his life, okay? Under the alias of Curtis Orwell, Goldstein is active in the anti-mask movement, wearing a Holocaust-themed pin, comparing vaccine to rape in social media posts, and using his employer social media account to like posts for anti-vax Facebook post. He's a smarty, yeah. Unfortunately for him, his employer did not agree. Let's put that up. Our New York broker CEO, Stephanie Birkin, has made masks for her company. Meanwhile, real estate agent Curtis Goldstein actively harasses New York school children who wear them. The update is the CEO has now fired this man for his actions. Yasmin, thoughts?
Well, I'm not a parent, but I can't imagine, like the accusation that any parent is intentionally harming their child is incredibly insulting. Even anti-vaxxer parents, I don't think that they think that they're doing something harmful to their child. They think they're helping. So for a man to accuse them of that is crazy. Also, the thing about, these children need to be breathing in clean oxygen in New York City. Are you joking? I mean, like the irony of that, if you're really concerned about the air quality, then do something about the air quality. It's not the masks that are the issue. And then on top of that, you're complaining about, I want the right to not wear a mask. So let people who want to wear it wear one. It's even less oppressive that way, at least the anti-vaxxers you could say they have a point in that they're not allowed into certain establishments without a mask on. People who want to wear a mask, though, there's no limitation on that. Just do it. You're not hurting anybody. And the people who are offended by other people wearing masks makes no sense to me.
Yeah, it's a great hypocrisy for those who say independent liberty should reign supreme, and then they go around criticizing people for thinking differently than they think. Okay, we've been saying on this show that this country has this romantic connection. It romanticizes white supremacy. It does. If you engage in terroristic action, if you commit felonies, the government will say, not a big deal. Misdemeanor, $500 fine, keep it moving. Well, now a federal judge has called out the federal government for what she calls a schizophrenic approach as it relates to those who committed acts of terrorism against the United States of America on January 6th. Let's put up a picture. I like this judge. Let's put her up. She looked like she don't play the radio, okay? Let me tell you what she said. Last Thursday, the chief federal judge presiding in DC criticized the January 6th prosecutions as being almost schizophrenic, saying the event's horror did not match the plea offers involving minor charges. That's you damn right. And we've been saying that since day one right here on the show. And people across this nation and beyond have felt the same sentiment as this judge has now said. Now, in our criminal justice system, judges do not have the right, they do not have the authority to affix additional charges. That is up to the state, that is up to the prosecution. Okay, so this is a rare repudiation from a sitting federal judge, but this judge has said it. She said in court last Thursday, and I quote, "No wonder parts of the public in the US are confused about whether what happened on January 6th at the Capitol was simply a petty offense of trespassing with some disorderliness or shocking criminal conduct that represented a grave threat to our democratic norms. Let me make my view clear. The rioters were not mere protesters." Wow. While she and other judges have expressed similar concern before, this was the chief judge's first time sentencing a rioter and her first chance to fully air her views and demand answers from prosecutors. She took the opportunity, spending over an hour interrogating prosecutors on the decision to let Tennessee video game developer Jack Jesse Griffith plead guilty to a misdemeanor for parading inside of the Capitol. Why, she asked, when prosecutors called the riot an attack on democracy unparalleled in American history, were Griffith and others and other participants facing the same charge as non-violent protesters who routinely disrupt congressional hearings? It seems like a bit of disconnect, the judge said, muddled and almost schizophrenic. The parading charge carries a sentence of at most 6 months with no supervised release. Okay? She knows why. She's quite aware, okay? Ms. Khan, I think you know why as well, because I guarantee you their last names would have been Muhammad, or if this would have been Black Lives Matter, the government would have treated them as terrorists, as violent criminals, and you would not see these kind of plea deals happening routinely.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really sad what's happening in the country now, where something like the January 6th insurrection could happen, and there's still debate over whether or not we should even be calling it an insurrection. When people that we elected to protect us and to rule and govern on our behalf are calling these people who attacked them personally, directly them, calling them tourists and protesters, peaceful protesters even. And it's really disheartening because you almost don't expect justice to be enacted anymore. You see something like this, you see the proceedings, everything is so obvious and it's laid out, it's blatant. Everyone knows what it is. I mean, recently I even had a guy, I was talking to him, he's a Trump voter, and I mentioned something about the Muslim ban back when Trump first got elected into office. And this guy, white, upper middle class American Republicans, said very matter-of-factly to me, it was not a Muslim ban. And I was like, everyone who looked like me knew exactly what that was. Everyone, It's not your place to tell me what that was or wasn't. So we just want some justice. And we don't want to have to keep explaining ourselves, explaining these obvious points. So.
All right, I got a question for everybody. What in the red state hell?
You can take a gun, shoot somebody in the face. It's not hard. Sometimes it might even be fun if they're a godless commie.
Now, what they're trying to do is sneak the COVID vaccine in your salads.
I hate math. Somebody say amen.
You stupid white! I'm gonna kick your stupid white ass! You dumb white! Yes! Here's a piece of white trash! You are white trash! It's good to know that all the people that follow you are hurting. I'm white trash too!
That's obvious.
And it's sad because I paid all this money to go to college. I can't get a job at McDonald's.
Insane. No,
you stupid white piece of know that your own kind is coming for you. Your own white ass is coming for you.
The only white person coming for me is your crazy ass.
Me, you stupid.
Yeah. You're a real class act.
White.
You're a class act, lady.
White.
Now, I've watched that video multiple times. I'm still confused as to the why, the what, everything. So I have sent an email to the white delegation to provide clarity as to what happened here. But until I get an official response from the white delegation, Ms. Khan will try to give us her insight into what she just saw.
My insight into what I just saw, I have no idea what I just saw. I live in a red state. I live in Texas. What stood out to me was when she was talking about, I have a college degree and I can't get a job at McDonald's. Who would hire you? I don't want to hire somebody like that. I mean, I'm a solid millennial. I don't think that a college degree entitles me to a job. I've lived a life as a millennial long enough to know that isn't the case, but I'm not hiring that lady, not even to work at McDonald's. Nope.
Yeah, I don't think it's the degree that's the problem. Okay, thank you so much for being on the show. Great job. And how can people follow you and check you out?
You can follow me on Instagram and TikTok. My handle is YazK. That's 5 Z's in there. YAZZZZZK. And you can listen to my podcast. It's called Global Thread. It's available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere else you get podcasts. And on the podcast, we talk about global issues that don't get a whole lot of focus in the news. And we dive into the history, why it's happening, what it means, where we go from there.
Good stuff. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, we got more on the other side. The bullpen is next. Stick and stay.
You know what the progressive movement needs? It needs a little energy, a little pizzazz, maybe a little caffeine. Oh, coffee. But what if it was Too Strong Coffee? Yes, new TooStrongCoffee.com/TYT. Look, this helps progressive causes. It's also organic and fair trade, so you've got peace of mind that it was done right, and it happens to taste great. So check it out right now at TooStrongCoffee.com/TYT.
That 300 million is a pretty good number, Well, that's the size of the US population. You know what our next target is? The size of the entire world.
We just crossed 5 billion views on YouTube.
I mean, imagine 10 years ago thinking, one day.
We looked at you like, are you nuts?
Young Turks has just passed another milestone. 15 billion views.
Damn. All right.
right, lots of comments. You guys are the best.
I'm gonna read a few comments from our members.
Mr. Methuselah says on YouTube, super chat, thanks for all the important work you do for TYT for the movement.
Do you know who had the first super chat when I got back from vacation? You won't be surprised to find out. Rob Shively. What do you know? Rob says, rejoice, for Dragon Daddy has returned.
This question sent to us by Izzy Sanchez Jr. Is it me, or is Meghan McCain talking as fast as Ben Shapiro? Is that the way the right tries to look smart and intellectual? Well, yes.
Michael Nathan writes it on Twitter. Did Anna choose Cenk's outfit today? I'm sure it wasn't Cenk himself. Man Bun Jenkins Skinny Jeans says, so now Anna has pointed out, okay, that's his handle.
T. Joyce, 1971, saying Donald Trump is good at pulling out of things, NAFTA, the Iran deal, NATO. It's just too bad Fred Trump didn't.
All right, let me do a little quick plug here. It's not even a plug. I'm bragging, okay? I'm bragging. Watch me. We have a channel on YouTube, a whole channel devoted just to the Young Turks. It's badass, right? Wow, man. I can see the voice.
You guys are rock stars.
Unbelievable. Senator Sanders, welcome to Rebel Headquarters. Man, you guys are amazing. We gave you what you wanted. Okay. Speaking of shirts.
I have a surprise.
You reached a lot of people. You are the Young Turks. And we have spread that progressive message wide and far. Let's keep it going.
Here's what we do. We go beyond the headline. We are willing to engage in transparent conversations with those who do not think like me. We also make sure that you know what's happening not only nationally, but in your local area. Make sure you tune in to Indisputable with Dr. Rashad Ritchie, Monday through Friday, 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time, 11:30 a.m. Pacific Time.
Cool news, shoptyt.com now has books. There's a whole bunch of books there. You're gonna be shocked to find out that they're largely progressive. Of course! Ryan Grimm's book, We've Got People, is there. It's a fantastic story from Jesse Jackson to Bernie Sanders to AOC that explains the progressive movement probably better than any book I've ever read. Speaking of awesome books, my dad's got a book out called The Original Young Turk, where he goes from the poorest olive farmer you ever met in your life to living the American dream.
All right, welcome back. Let me read some of these comments. Before I get to the comments, let me remind everyone, membership drive, okay? If you're not a member of this change machine known as TYT, make sure you become a member right now, all right? TYT.com/change, TYT.com/change. From being the first to cover important stories to taking positive action on the ground, TYT has been at the forefront of change since our inception. You can be part of that change by becoming a member. Make that happen, okay? Also, don't forget, we're looking for a new video or new video content creators for Rebel HQ. We're looking for people to write, produce, host, and edit short form editorial videos on breaking news and political stories with a progressive point of view. If you are interested, apply right now at tyt.com/careers, all right? Okay, here are the comments. TYT member about the anti-masker who was a realtor. Next TYT reporter says, CNN says the guy who was clearly controlled by Tucker Carlson. Right, the irony is staggering. Colorado Blue Blazer regular says, children need empathy. Says the man clearly lacking empathy. Also, those children should have started screaming, danger stranger and bad touch. Yeah, why was he allowed to be that close to kids? For the life of me, I don't understand this. All right, YouTube super chat anti-masker. Knuckle Dragon, he's lucky all he got was fired. Yeah. The unholiness within, I would ask this guy, are you a doctor? Okay. Directive 4, sorry Karen, nobody who maintains that voice while shrieking is well. Free to express 08, to quote Family Guy, meth is a hell of a drug. All right, Twitch, Jackson Drax. Maybe she's just bitter because her own career as a pro skateboarder wasn't able to take off. Maybe so. Kentucky Appy, I think, PDX. This judge should be put on the Rittenhouse case. Exactly. For real though. Wood Pup says, have my people talk to my people? That's right, have my people talk to my people because my people are coming after my people. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the bullpen. Yep, in the bullpen today, we have Miss Amber Athey, Washington editor at The Spectator and co-host of O'Connor and Company on WMAL. Amber, good to have you on the show. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. We're going to chop it up about vaccine protocols, school mask mandates, etc. I don't want to presume what you know or believe about these items. So if you would, give us your sentiment.
Sure. Well, I am very against vaccine mandates. I actually support most people getting the vaccine. I've received the vaccine myself. I got the first dose of the Johnson & Johnson. However, I think the mandates are misguided because as we've learned, as we have uncovered more about the efficacy of the vaccines don't prevent you from getting or transmitting COVID. Really what they do is they prevent people from developing these severe side effects and they lower the risk of death. So in that way, the vaccines are really about a personal choice in regards to your own health and less about how they affect the other people around you. Because again, you can still transmit the virus to other people even after vaccinated. And when we see the way that the goalposts have been moving on the vaccines as well, I understand people's skepticism towards them. It started out as you had to get your 2 doses if you had Pfizer or Moderna, and your 1 dose if you had the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. And now we're at the point where people are talking about getting their 4th shot, a 4th booster shot. So I question if the mandates are going to be keeping up with the booster shots or if you're okay with just having 2. And at what point are you still considered fully vaccinated?
Okay, so let me ask you this, because you did say that it does in fact lower the risk of death, which is true. That's based on the observation of science. And it also can lessen the symptoms. Another true statement based on the observation of science. When you say that you are against the mandates, obviously you're not against the vaccine, but you are against the mandate, which is a protocol and typically a governmental protocol, even though some private industry has engaged in this as well. What is your reason for being against the mandate? Is it a civil liberty issue or just an issue as it relates to COVID vaccine mandates?
Sure, I think this is specific to the COVID vaccine because the way that this vaccine works, it doesn't prevent people around you from getting COVID and it doesn't prevent you from getting infected. So usually when we talk about vaccines and mandates, it's to protect the people around us. And that's why we have these certain vaccine mandates for children who go into public schools. They have to get vaccinated against a number of serious illnesses. And that's how we've eradicated a lot of those illnesses. In the case of COVID, the vaccine is primarily for your personal protection. And we haven't seen much evidence as of yet that the vaccine really prevents transmission to other people around you. So it is very specific to the COVID vaccine, but it also is a question of personal medical choice. And I think people who are young and healthy and don't have the comorbidities that we would usually see that would cause people to have severe reactions to COVID should be able to make the choice that they don't want to get the vaccine, but don't have to choose between that and their job.
You know, I'm glad you made a distinction here because many people fall into the trap of calling the COVID-19 vaccine a mandate and that it is a violation of civil liberty. Well, 100% of K through 12 education, they have had vaccine mandates on the books for decades. The majority of college campuses, you must have a vaccine protocol. You have to present that and say, hey, I got my shots in order to go to college on this campus. And naturally, the US military, and the list goes on and on, healthcare professionals, et cetera. So it can't be a civil liberties issue. And I understand your point of view about COVID being a very different, the COVID vaccine being a very different thing. But the virus itself is a very different thing as well. Is it because of the research or the lack of research that some would say? Is that the reason why there's this level of hesitation with having some level of protocol for a COVID vaccine and not having that same level of protocol for some of the other accepted vaccinations that are already in play?
I do think that's definitely part of it. And I would never fault anybody for looking at the evidence available and saying we simply don't know enough yet about this vaccine. It has only really been tested for about a year and a half and on children for an even shorter period of time. And one of a concern of myself and fellow young women is the effect that it could potentially have on our future fertility. And unfortunately, it's not that we are conspiracy theorists or we think that this vaccine is actively killing women and their ability to get pregnant, but we simply don't know because there hasn't been large-scale testing on women who are pregnant or on women who have received the vaccine and then go on to try to get pregnant in the future. So that's one of many, I think, valid concerns that people might have about this vaccine simply because of the fact that it is so new and we're learning more and more. I mean, when the first vaccine was first being pushed at the end of the Trump administration and into the beginning of the Biden administration, people were told that the vaccine would actually prevent them from contracting COVID at all. We later learned that it really just reduces your symptoms and your potential to die from COVID. And now we're also learning that the vaccines don't last as long as we thought they did. It turns out you're only protected for a period of about 6 months before you have to start getting those booster shots, particularly if you're in a high risk category. So I think all of the changes, even in just the past year and even just since the vaccines have been approved by the FDA, have led people to be a little bit skeptical because even the scientists don't really seem to have all of the data available yet.
That's quite interesting. So let's talk about the study of the vaccine. I know people continue to say, well, we've only studied this vaccine for 1 year. That's not true. That's not true based on the scientific nature of what's in the vaccine. For lack of a better word, the ingredients of the vaccine have been studied for 22 years and actually utilized unsuccessfully in other clinical trials to treat other viruses, HIV/AIDS being one of them. So this has been around for a long time, and you had a world emphasis on this particular vaccine because of the pandemic, the nature of the pandemic. You had more money thrown at this than ever before for any singular issue in the medical profession. You've had more emphasis placed on it, more clinical trials done in a shorter period of time than any other era in human existence. So you can't say it hasn't been studied. Now, is information still forthcoming? Of course, that's what science is. Science is the observation of the field. That's what science has always been. But let me ask you about the issue of schools and their particular mandates, right? So there's only a handful of school systems that are saying they will start mandating COVID vaccines moving forward, all right? And as a matter of fact, I don't think any have done it yet. They're saying once it gets to a certain place next year, they may move in that direction. But we do have mask mandates already as protocols in a lot of school districts across the country. Do you have an issue with the mandate of the mask?
I do have an issue with the mandate of the mask because children, as we know, are not big spreaders of COVID. They're actually the least likely to provide high transmission rates. They also don't really get sick themselves. Children account for just 0.26% of COVID deaths nationwide, and children who get sick with COVID-19 only have a death rate of between 0 and 0.03%. So when we're talking about protecting children, what is actually a bigger concern to me, because the death rate is so low among children, is the fact that their social development could be stunted by these masks. And I've spoken to child psychologists about this. Dr. Jennifer Reisman, who is in Montgomery County, Maryland, deals with child psychology, and she has said that when she's working with her clients, she has noticed that a lot of children have developed anxiety when looking at people's faces because they've been wearing masks outside of their homes for so long. And she also said that there's probably going to be long-term consequences for children because they haven't gotten used to seeing strangers' faces or even communicating effectively. And particularly for nonverbal children or children who are hard of hearing, this is another additional hurdle for them. And so I don't think that the benefits of wearing masks, which are really very minimal, outweigh the potential harm to children.
You know, all right, so I'm going to challenge you on one of your data sets when you said children are not spreaders of COVID. That's untrue based on the data. The data shows that children can be super spreaders to their families because the ecosystem of their existence is beyond that of a school system. It also connects back to mom, dad, grandmother, their grandfather, and their general peer group. So they can be super spreaders. And in some regions in the United States, up to 18% of their citywide COVID-19 outbreaks can be traced back to a person 18 years of age and under. So that's not true based on the observable data that we have. The second part is when we talk about mask mandates, I find it really interesting that in school systems, we allow school boards, which is the administrative arm of the school system, to enact what's called administrative law. They have this ability under their constitutional authority inside of that state. So we're saying that these school boards and these school systems, madam, they have the ability, the right, the authority to enforce vaccine mandates that you already agree with. You agree with these mandates. They have the authority to enforce common sense attire. It's called a dress code. They have the authority to enforce administrative law, but all of a sudden when it comes to being in the middle of a pandemic, you're saying that you disagree with these mandates. Do you disagree with the school board's authority to have this kind of operational leverage over those they have responsibility for?
Sure, and let me just start with the first part because I do want to make one correction. I did not say that children can't spread the virus, but they do spread it at a lower rate than adults do because they have a lower viral load. So that's what I meant by that statement. But to your question about school boards, of course they have the authority to enact all kinds of policies in their schools. And I actually appreciate that school boards can enact policies on a local level as opposed to the type of federal mandate that the Biden administration is trying to implement through an OSHA regulation. So school boards do have that authority, but I think it's up to parents and local citizens to oppose that mandate if they do by either electing new people to the school board or showing up at meetings as they are all across Virginia right now ahead of the election and making their voices heard. And that's actually a much more effective way for these mandates to be challenged or to be implemented is to do it on the local level based on people's decisions in their own communities. And so I do support their authority.
Yeah, I respect that you said that. Now, obviously, you don't agree with anybody threatening to kill or run them off the road, any of that madness that has been spouted by some. Right, so you don't appreciate nor respect that. Now, let's go back to OSHA. You brought up OSHA. This is a temporary COVID-19 protocol. People are calling it a mandate, but the Biden executive order is not a mandate. Now, I can make an argument that a mandate can be justified, but it's not a mandate, at least in its current executive order form. It's literally a protocol that says if you have 100 employees working for you, there has to be a protocol for COVID-19. And that protocol is this: either A, you get the COVID-19 vaccination, or B, you don't get it, and you have to be subject to a test once every 7 days based on the ETS, which is the Emergency Temporary Standard of OSHA. And OSHA derives its authority from Article 1 of the US Constitution, which is basically your Section 8 Commerce Clause. So when we say it's a mandate, why don't we call it what it is, Amber? It's an actual protocol. And that protocol provides an allowance for non-vaccinated individuals to be tested. It still allows for religious exemption to be applied. So why are we still calling it a mandate from the White House?
Well, I think that it is effectively a mandate if you provide an undue burden on people who choose not to get vaccinated. And unfortunately, a lot of businesses are reading this as a mandate because they don't want to deal with having to have these people getting tested all the time and constantly checking that. And so you are seeing a lot of people lose their jobs across the country. And I do find it rather ironic that the same crowd that talks about nurses and doctors as being heroes at the beginning of the pandemic is now cheering on their firing because they don't want to get the vaccine. And there are vast healthcare worker shortages across the country. Most recently in New York, I believe they actually have a shortage of firefighters now in New York City because about 30% of them don't want to get the vaccine, and instead they are either being put on leave or fired because of that. So I think it's really unfortunate that we are now punishing the very people who were saving lives for a year or longer, working 12-hour shifts nonstop during the pandemic. And I would think that healthcare professionals, by the way, are perfectly capable of making their own medical decisions considering they work in the field.
You know, I do find it quite interesting that you said this. So let me correct you on the numbers. It's 18% in New York, okay? You had 2,000 firefighters. They called out, they're playing that they're sick, according to the chief of the New York City Fire Department. And you have about 11,000 who work there, roughly 11,000. The vast majority of New York firefighters, they got the vaccination. And a judge has ruled that the city does have the ability, the right and authority to implement such a protocol. And let's go to healthcare workers, right? You're right, healthcare workers are to be championed. They are. That's why over 90% of the field, they're okay with the vaccination mandate. Over 90%. You know why over 90% of the field of healthcare workers are okay with a mandate in their hospital or whatever healthcare facility they work at? Because they signed up for the right reason. They wanted to do no harm. They wanted to help others. They wanted to make sure that they engaged in safe and healthy practices. And here's the other part that we haven't discussed: herd immunity. You've heard scientists talk about this, that in order for us to overcome the pandemic so it doesn't become endemic, all right, is herd immunity. Well, America cannot create herd immunity. So even if you get 100% of Americans vaccinated, because we live in a global context, you still won't reach herd immunity. But you will never reach herd immunity without America. And that's the sentiment that I think we lose in the conversation about how to overcome this pandemic. Remember, the things that we take vaccines for routinely, many of them were pandemics. They were global in nature. And we now have herd immunity in the United States of America from much of it, but that's because of the spread, right? And the general immunity that people receive. If you don't get to that point, we will be fighting this same issue on different levels every single cycle. So there's some science here that we have to agree with because of the nature of viruses. Do you not agree?
I completely agree with the concept of herd immunity. And that's why I think it is actually especially important that people who do have healthy immune systems and feel comfortable fighting off COVID are able to opt out of the vaccine, because we have seen from preliminary studies that natural immunity is actually even stronger against the virus than the vaccine. And so if someone feels comfortable, if they're young and healthy and they feel like they can take their chances with the virus, I think they should be allowed to do that. because then they have greater protection down the line. Of course, if you're someone with comorbidities, if you're in an older age group, or if you are significantly overweight, then absolutely you should get the vaccine. But it is very reasonable to me that those people have different health outcomes, they have different comorbidities, and they should be able to make a different decision about the vaccine.
You know, I wish I had a little more time with you. I do find you to be brilliant, and I'm glad that you are making the points you're making for your side, because you're not saying some of the common things that I hear. Some of the stuff is common, but you are making some common sense analogy about school boards having the authority. You don't think it's a civil liberty issue. Let me ask you quickly before we run out of time. Private businesses, that has been part of the conversation as well. Private businesses that say, no mask, no service. Traditionally, conservatives have always said companies have the right to enforce these common sense rules in their workplace. No shoes, no shirt, no service. That was no shoes, no shirt, no mask, no service. Do you have an issue with the protocol of private companies being able to enforce these rules in their establishment?
I've always been on the side of businesses for the most part, barring anti-discrimination laws, being able to choose who they serve in their establishments. And I am consistent on this issue. And I don't think it would be hypocritical, however, for a conservative to say, I understand that the business has the right to do that, but I think what they're doing is wrong. And that's the most common tack that I see conservatives taking on that issue.
Yeah, and I do think it's hypocritical on policy, but maybe not belief. Maybe you say, I know what the policy is. I agree with the policy, but I have a different belief as it relates to that policy. I still think it's hypocritical, but you're not making a policy argument. You're making a personal values argument then. I appreciate you being on the show, Ms. Amber. Great debate.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. All right, remember the conversation today, right before the Young Turks, and always take care of yourself, take care of each other, take care of the planet. Remember, the truth is always indisputable.